Okay, so the agenda is very simple. We're going to understand what this exam is all about, right? Many of us think it's a simple exam, but many of you would be writing this exam. It's a professional exam. Many of you writing it after many years. Some would have written a CA exam the last 3 years, 5 years. For you, it will be a bit of a different step in terms of going back into routine. Some of you are concurrently taking this exam with your CA final. It should pretty much be similar. But the exam is a British board, and therefore the methodology in which you approach is diametrically different as to what you would have approached in the Indian methodology. Right, so we'll just tell you what the objective slide is primarily tell you what the Britishers, or rather the ACCA team, is expecting from you guys from this exam. We'll just show you what the question paper format looks like. We'll give you our methodology in how to study for these exams so that you're more effective and you spend your time more efficiently. We'll share what resources are available for you to use and what tools you can use to help you prepare for this exam. And finally, I'll just show you a demo session on how to use the Google Classroom. Most of you would have got access to it already, but I'll just walk you through so that you familiarize yourself and so that you use it more effectively, right? And feel free to ask me questions anytime during this source of the session. So before we get on the objective, I just want to ask a question to all of you in terms of why did you take a decision to get one knowledge, but more importantly, get certified? Anyone wants to answer?
To become expert in IFRS.
Okay. Anyone else?
More and more Indian companies are also converging into IFRS, so IFRS has become a necessity more than a...
Right on. That's okay. Anyone else? And if you decided to get knowledge, but why get certified? I mean, is there a reason that you want to get certified apart from just the knowledge?
Because it has a recognition of over a worldwide.
Okay. Right. So just to give you a sense of the company's background, we are formed by a person by the name Vicky Sareen. He's been a CFO at Hindustan Times, where he's also led a job portal called shine.com. Most of you, if you're in India, would be aware of Shine. So we do carry a bit of a knowledge in terms of what recruiters actively look for as a team. Most of us have worked with him under Shine or maybe at Naukri.com. So we do have an understanding or an insight as to what recruiters look for, right? And ultimately, what eventually boils down is your CV different than somebody else? For very simple reasons. A recruiter, when he looks into a job portal or he looks into LinkedIn, and let's say he posts a job which says, I need somebody in IFRS. In today, if you look at Naukri.com or Shine, the moment you search for an IFRS keyword, you'll find around 15,000 hits. Now imagine the number of CVs which a recruiter is going to get, because everyone is going to say he's certified. A recruiter doesn't have time to scan beyond 100 CVs, and that's what they do. So when we were at Shine, we used to simply look at what recruiters would download. They would not go beyond the first page, which is about 100 CVs or 80 CVs. So, and any job portal or even LinkedIn for the matter would reward students who've shown that they have been accredited by a proper certifying body, because they also want to sell. It's their business. And therefore, the recruiters, when they see the first 100 CVs, would predominantly be if you've added a certification, let's say apart from a qualification. So let's say if you're a CA or an MBA, you put that qualification, but if they're looking for somebody in IFRS, they'll want to see whether you've been actually vetted, right? And therefore, that certification will differentiate you between the thousands of CVs which you go to a recruiter versus 10 or 15. So to give you a sense of numbers in the country today, around 3,000 students write the exam. This is India, I'm just talking of around 2,000 to 3,000 students write an exam annually. That's the diploma IFRS market size. And the pass rates are only about 30%, right? So only about 1,000 CVs are getting certified, which the recruiters are seeing. So therefore, getting yourself certified on either ACCA or AICPA is very critical if you want to actually get noticed by the recruiters. So simple two reasons why we also encourage everyone to get certified. One, increasingly all recruiters say that IFRS is, as somebody already said, that every recruiter or every company is looking for skills on IFRS. It's become a necessity now, right? You need to have knowledge on IFRS. It's like 10 years or 15 years or 20 years back, they said, you know, Excel. Now, nobody even bothers saying they know Excel on the CV because it's a given. It is given that you need to have knowledge on Ind AS or IFRS in the current age and scenario. But if you're certified in IFRS, it differentiates your CV to a large extent, and therefore the recruiters would pick up candidates who are certified, right? So therefore, the only three bodies which give a certification in the world, one is ACCA, which is called the Diploma in IFR. Then you have AICPA, which is actually the IFRS certification. And the third is the Institute of England and Wales, which also issues a Diploma in IFRS. So only these three bodies issue certification. If you carry a certification from either three, you would get notified by a recruiter. Right, so let's understand the objective of the exam, right? So just two objectives, which the ACCA UK team wants to check. One is they say that we want to test your concepts, right? So obviously it's a technical paper, it's around financial reporting. So they say that we want to test concepts, and they give a weight attribute of 50 marks out of 100 on your concepts, right? So in concepts, what they want to do is they don't want you to be an expert in IFRS. They don't want you to be industry specific, an expert, or or focus only on specific industries. But what they say is that we want to cover the entire breadth of IFRS. So you may be tested on agriculture, which you may never use in day-to-day life. You may be tested on IFRS or SME, or you may be tested on something like financial instruments, which is or leases, which is used on a day-to-day basis, right? So they want to test your breadth. From a depth perspective or an expertise perspective, they just want to just tip in a little bit on the iceberg and see, do you know the depth? They don't want you to be an expert in it, but just at the level where you're able to work and explain your answers to anyone. The second bit different, the second difference with or the objective of the exam is your narrative, right? This is where this exam is diametrically opposite to what would you have encountered in Indian scenario or a chartered accountancy exam. Primary for the reason that the Indian marking scheme predominantly has been the right answer versus a wrong answer, right? So if you've been given a financial reporting paper, whether you tallied your balance sheet, you may score marks. If you haven't tallied your balance sheet, you may not score marks. Or if you're given a right computation, you may score. If you've done a calculation error somewhere, you may score less. Whereas this exam says that, listen, we are not bothered about your calculations, right? So all we are interested in seeing is whether you can give a good answer. So the mark, you get answers for a good answer. You don't get marks for a bad answer, right? Now, why do they bring in this difference? Is around 3 or 4 years back, ACCA obviously gets its feedback from various industries, CFOs, and say that what are you looking if somebody is going to get qualified in our exam in IFRS? So most of the CFOs say that, listen, we don't want our chartered accountant or the guy who's qualified on this to be a bean counter. We want him to come and explain to us that how should we apply this concept in a particular scenario. Hi, guys, can you please go on mute? I think Kushbu, you're on. Can you go on mute, please? Yeah, thanks. Right. So what ACCA did from 2019 is very simple. They said, we're not going to test you on concepts and computations, but we're going to test how well you actually present and explain the concept back to us. Right. So exams are now very wordy, right? It's no more about solving or sitting with the calculator for the exams. It's more presentation based. So think of it like if you're going to explain a concept to your CEO, you go walk into a board meeting. Would you walk in with an Excel or would you walk in with a PPT and explain your points on a bullet? Right. So what ACCA says is we want you to be the guy who presents on a PPT. Give us your articulate thoughts as you would present to a CEO. Explain to us in this scenario, how would you apply the particular standard? And obviously back it up with some workings as you would do on a PPT, say in terms of brackets and everything. So that's the objective of the exam. And this is where a lot of students fail the exam, right? But if you're able to marry your concepts and the way to present your concepts, you'll score 100. If you only focus on concepts, you will not clear this exam 90 out of 100 times. We know students who come to us scoring at 40s or 30s, and primarily students who've gone on self-study thinking that they would be able to clear this exam. They don't understand the importance of the entire different methodology of marking scheme, which the Britishers bring in, right? They are interested in your explanation and reasoning rather than just your computation and solution, right? So as an example, when we speak to the teams, the ACCA teams, they say that if, as an example, there's a question 1 is always on consolidation. You've tallied your balance sheet, but you haven't done any explanation or given your rationale behind it. If it's a 25-mark question, they will give you 3 out of 25, at best 5. But if you've not tallied your balance sheet and you've got all the explanations right, you will score about 20 out of 25. That's the difference the marking scheme is, right? So that's primarily the objectives. One is concept. We believe it's a 50% weightage on marks. And that's simply coming out of our statistics when students who score in the 40s, when we speak to them and understand why did they fail, they said they thought it was an easy exam. They were chartered accountants. And they thought that they would just go and address it like a CA final paper. Whereas the moment they just worked with us on the exam technique, their score went to around 80s. That's the difference it makes. Right. So what does the exam look like? It's a 100-mark paper. There are 4 questions, 25 marks each. The first question is consolidation. So it's obviously around a bit of computations where you're tallying a balance sheet. But the remaining 3/4 of the paper is entirely scenario-based, where your reasoning and knowledge is tested along with the presentation. Right. So each question carries 25. Questions 2, 3, and 4 will carry sub-parts. So there may be around 2 or 3 sub-questions. So overall, you may end up with around 8 or 9 questions. It's a 3-hour paper. All exams are computer-based exams. So there's no more pen and paper exams, which means your tools are Excel and Word. So you will be given a choice to either use Excel and Word, and we will help you out to understand which question to ask in Excel and Word when we start our training with you. You need 50 marks to clear. The exams are of 100. And the exam is a 3-hour exam, and you get 15 minutes to read the exam. So that's the broad construct of the exam. In terms of questions, as I said, these are the 4 kind of questions which come. First question is on consolidation. So you could be either given a consolidated balance sheet or P&L. Right. It's second and third questions obviously relate to around scenarios. So there would be around, some of the difficult and moderate standards, we call it like standard on revenue or lease or ESOPs or employee benefits. So that's where your depth is being tested. Right. So question 2 and 3 is around depth, around most of the standards which you would predominantly use on day-to-day life. So if there are about 25 different standards which are tested, around 8 or 9 would be between question 2 and 3. Question 4 is where it tests your breadth. They're basically simple standards. So simple standards could be something like a 2-pager, like agriculture or inventory, or rule-based standards like related party or segments, or so very simple standards. Many times students don't want to read these standards, but as I said, the objective is to test your breadth. So they could ask any question from across the 25 standards, but which are much more simpler, but they're tested to check whether you actually have gone through the entire syllabus, right? That's from 2021, ACCA also got a feedback from the industry that they need their students to have a spine, which means they need to stand up to the management and say, if it's wrong, it's wrong. So they've introduced a mandatory 5-mark question on ethics. Now the ethics question can come anywhere between question 2, 3, and 4. So there's an ethics framework. It's all about professional integrity and how well you approach your financial reporting. Right. So that's a mandatory question now. And it's a very simple chapter which you guys can read. It's the first chapter on the BPP book, which can be easily covered. Any questions so far at the moment? Right. Okay. So let me move on. Right. So any guesses on what the pass rates are with the diploma IFRS exams? Have any of you Googled it? Okay, so I'll just tell you it's around 35 to 40%. It used to be the healthy 60, 65% way back in pre-COVID, we would say, or way back before computer-based exams were bought in. So the pass rates have dropped now dramatically to around 30. Some exams have gone to as low as 30%. The last exam was around 40. Right, it's gone drastically down. And that's primarily gone down is because of the exam format, which I was telling that the secondary objective, which has been bought in, is to test your exam technique or your presentation and reasoning. And they made the exam more wordy. And therefore, the pass rates have dropped dramatically from a 65 to 70% to around 35. The second factor, which applies more towards diploma IFRS students, is this is the only exam which they write on a computer. right? If you are doing a main ACCA, you would have been used to writing exams on a computer, but this is the only exam which you will be writing. And it's a computer-based exam. So students who just go into the exam without any sort of practice or preparation on the software, they struggle big time on time. So we would use now when our classes start, we would urge you to start looking at the software, start getting a feel of it, so that when you go to the exam, you are totally in control of what the software looks like. Right. So it's not a very difficult thing, but it's just a lack of practice which leads to loss of time in the exam. Our pass rates, touch would have been very good. We possibly get the best pass rates in the world. We also possibly get the best, the best scores in the world also belong to Edush alumni at the moment in the last at least 3 years. Our pass rates around 65 to 75%. And primary reason is, which you will also realize why our pass rates are high, is when you start your journey with us, we will push you to study. There's a continuous engagement. Plus, we also keep sub-passively or subconsciously putting a thought in your mind on exam technique. So we know that most of you would be, in the next 2-3 months would be clear on concepts, but it is the exam technique which is critical, which is the second wheel, which we will keep pushing you. And therefore, when you realize when you go into the exams in the last week, you will be much more confident than when you start. Right. So the conceptual clarity gets you 50%. The next 50% comes from exam technique, your ability to manage time in the exam, and your computer-based exams. Right. So how do we, so what we will now do is, how do we get into a good study methodology? Right. So study methodology is not about, going and studying and, obviously spending 20 hours a week. It's about using the right tools and the right approach. Right. So I will just cover that approach now. So there are only two, and what we looked at in the past, students, there are only two mantras to clear. One is a commitment. Most of you have enrolled with a stimuli that, you wanted to do this exam. So you went on to YouTube, you looked for some certification which will help you. Maybe you saw us and you enrolled with us. You spoke to your manager and he said, you need to get, an IFRS knowledge if you need a promotion or you want to go up to become a CFO. Or maybe you went for an interview and somebody said you need IFRS, and that maybe was your stimuli to start searching for an IFRS program, right? So you immediately swiped your card on a site and said, I want to get enrolled. But now we want the same energy which you asked us when you are, the questions which you asked us in enrollment to continue all the way to your exams. So this exam is all about commitment in terms of creating a habit. Any habit takes a minimum 2 to 3 weeks to form. So what we usually tell our students is, don't pick up your books on the weekend and read. Make it a habit, a daily habit, which means that, and many students say, how can we study daily? We work 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours a day. We are finance guys. So we say you have to find time. And when we say you make it a habit to read, doesn't mean you read the books. It could be anything on the internet, right? So it's just a question of training your brain to think that at this particular time, you are picking something on IFRS. Could be wake up in the morning on your phone, just swipe, join an IFRS LinkedIn group if you could find, or just open up any of the big four topics and just search for, say, revenue, read an article on what's happening on revenue, or go to IFRS.org. So every day morning, just read 15-20 minutes. In the lunch break, just take around 15 minutes. And in the evening, when you come back, spend about half an hour with a book or any other resource. The intent here is your brain starts accepting there is a pattern of study. And two, most importantly, your brain starts accepting words, right? What usually, and if you would have, many of you would have asked is, why your lectures starting in July, right? Why don't you start now? And why are you asking us to go through recorded lectures? The intent is very simple. If we push you into record live lectures straight away, the amount of verbs and terminology which we will throw at you, your brain won't accept it, right? Your brain needs to be preconditioned to it. It's like running a marathon. You don't run into a marathon without conditioning your body. So use these 2 months to absorb as much free knowledge which is available on the internet. Use our resources, watch our recorded lectures, but make it a habit to study every day, right? Second is time. Ensure that you have adequate time to prepare for the exam. So plan your time accordingly. If you're writing in June, obviously there is the peak season of audits. If you're writing in December, there's lots of holidays which are going to come in the month of October, November, festivals, marriages. So just try and plan that accordingly, budget those holidays. Plus also some of you, we know students say that they've fallen sick for a week. So plan that, keep that contingencies in mind, but plan that. Broadly, we say that if you're a chartered accountant, if you've done an exam the last 5 years, we recommend around 150 to 200 hours is good enough to prepare for the exam, which includes watching our lectures, revision, practice. If you're a non-chartered accountant, we would, and depending on your background, if you're actually working in an IFRS, organization which employs IFRS, or if you're totally starting afresh, minimum between 200 to 300 hours, right? So the more you obviously put time, the more you need. You got roughly about 5 months for the exam. So plan your time accordingly, right? If you are able to create a planner, successful students, they've come back and shown to us that they create an Excel planner. This is what they're going to study. It need not be a topic. It could just be a point in time that morning at 6:15 or 6:30 when I wake up, I'm going to study for 15 minutes. In the evening, I'm going to study for half an hour. Make a plan, make a timetable, each his own, but start giving that time. Don't wake up in the last month and say, listen, how do I study? We get that question asked a lot. And that question typically comes from students who didn't create the initial habit of preparing. Right. So just to summarize, only two simple tools. Ensure that you're committed to study and ensure that you get time to study. That's it. You will have to sacrifice time out of maybe watching a TikTok or maybe watching a Netflix movie or something. So, but it's not a drastic amount of time. But yes, it's a professional exam. It requires time. Right. So how do you go about studying? First, what we say is you have to build your conceptual clarity, which means that 6 weeks prior to the exam, all your concepts would need to have been finished, and that's where our lectures will also end. We usually end our lecture 6 weeks prior. So between the day you enroll till 6 weeks prior to the exam, ensure that you finished your concepts. Right? How do you go up with the concepts? All of you have got the BPP books, so there is a study text which explains the concept. Read it. On the Google Classroom, we've given you our own notes. They are around 1,500 pages. They are called workbooks. I'll show you that in a bit when we show you how to use the Google Classroom, but read those. There is something called an ACCA technical article. These are articles written by the ACCA exam team. They're written in layman terminology, and we love. Yeah.
No, sorry to interrupt. This session will cover only on ACCA, right? So nothing will be covered on AICPA.
Yes, it's primarily around ACCA.
Right. So during the part of this, are you going to cover how we should start reading ACCA as well?
See, it's more or less the same. I mean, you can just discount the BPP book. You would have got a login with us as well, a Google Classroom. So I'll show you the Google Classroom, which will be the Diploma IFRS login, but you can pretty much use it for the AICP as well. But the methodology is predominantly the same. The only difference is you may not be able to attend a live lecture, but you can watch a recorded, but other students can watch others, you can definitely watch the recorded.
Right. I think primarily for AICPA, it's more of a reading, right? So 25 modules is not about going through the lectures.
It is both in case you want to deepen your knowledge.
Okay. No, thanks, Manoj. Sorry to interrupt. You can proceed.
No worries. Right. So what I was talking of was the articles. We've given you all the articles which the ACCA team publishes. We encourage you to read that first. It's very simple. Read those. One of the largest reasons of our success for students who have very strong concepts is quizzes. So we have a huge bank of almost, I think, about 800 questions across various around 20-25 standards. There's a section on the Google Classroom with quizzes. Try and keep churning yourself. Let's say in the afternoon, if you on free time and you read a concept, take a quiz. See whether you actually understood the concept. Taking a quiz will iron out your deficiencies on understanding of the concept, because what happens a lot is you read a concept, but you've not known how to apply it practically, or you read a concept and maybe it's not retained. So the quiz is a beautiful tool to help you understand how to apply IFRS practically to industry, day-to-day life, as well as to help you retain the concept. Exam technique, which I said is the next 50% marks. This contributes, we would usually ask students to start focusing once they've got a grasp of concepts, and start focusing the last 2 months prior to the exam. How do you build? In our live lectures, 1/3 of our time is devoted towards exam technique. So we will solve past question papers with you to show you how the examiner was thinking in terms of a model answer and how you should start constructing your answers. You will have the revision kit. There are lots of sums, 50 practice questions. Students who score 80 plus usually practice the revision kit twice, if not thrice. So that's the amount of times you need to revise if you want to score the 80. Take a mock exam. We will conduct a mock about 2 or 3 weeks prior to the exam and practice as much as you can on the software. There's a free link software given to all of you on the classroom. Please do use it. Last but not least, do ensure that you are totally aware of the ACCA exams. There's a syllabus guide. So a lot of standards, not everything is covered. Let's say an IFRS 15, not every element of IFRS 15 revenue or leases, let's say IFRS 16 is covered. There are some elements which are left out. And there are some standards which are also not part of the ACCA exams, like a cash flow, which is IS 7, or IFRS 17, which is insurance, right? So ACCA keeps changing syllabus year on year. So do ensure that your syllabus, you read the syllabus, though our content in the BPP books is aligned with the syllabus. But many times students say that I want to just read cash flow statements or insurance flow. It doesn't make any sense because it's not part of the exams. Familiarize yourself with exam rules. And there is also home-based exams in case, God forbid, COVID happens again. But ACCA does ensure that there are home-based exams. Option is available, which means you can take exams from home instead of going to a center. So how do you use our resources? And that's the playlist which we offer. So we have a Google Classroom, which all of you would have got. We've put on a playlist of all topics where, in each topic, you'll find our notes, Excel sheets, slides, and our recorded lectures. We also will be doing live lectures, and the links will be shared on the Google Classroom when the live lectures will start. We also will give you a study planner on how to start once the June exams are over. You have the books. There are 3 books which come. Most of you would have got the study text and revision kit. The third book is called a pass card. It's a very small pocket-sized book. We think it's one of the key differentiators to score the last 8 or 9 marks. It's a very useful and very beautiful book for revision. Unfortunately, BPP doesn't print these books as much. So we are the only ones, I think, in India who imports the pass card. And the moment they come, they get sold out. And it's a very short print run. So we are getting pass cards, hopefully by maybe by mid of June. So if anyone wants to order their pass cards, please do, because at the time of exams, we would have usually been sold out. I mean, at the last 4 attempts, we know that we even had pass cards in 2 months prior to the exams. So it gets sold out. And 3, there are lots of ACCA material which is there in the Google Classroom as well. We have indexed all past question papers from 2014 with model answers. So you don't have to go searching anywhere. All articles, as I mentioned, and all ACCA rules and regulations, everything has been indexed for you under the Google Classroom. Right. So how do you use the...
Actually, one question on the past question papers. All of those question papers, the answers for those would be based on the current IFRS standard, right? I mean, it's not based on what was existed past then. Would there be a change?
So what happens is the BPP revision kit updates the answers to the current standard, whereas the ACCA past papers, we have kept it. So whenever you're picking up a topic, if you were to just Google when was the last amendment which has happened, so you'll find that most of the questions, most of the standards, at least for about 70% of standards, there have been no amendments since 2014. Most of the amendments that happened prior to that, only 3 or 4 standards amendments have come, which is revenue, leases, and financial instruments, which are anyway post 2018. So you won't find it. We haven't put any question papers on those prior to 2017 or 2018. But the reason we give you that is, one, you get to understand more questions. You see model answers across. Compare those with the BPP latest study text to see if you're aligned with the standard, or just Google it. Let's say you're picking up agriculture. The moment you Google when was the last standard, it'll say 2011. So you know that you can attend those agriculture questions. But most importantly, all the answers come with the examiner's feedback, which means the examiner would tell where the students went wrong. So we've also put that an extra resource for you, so that when you understand from the mistakes of other students, you will work on those weaknesses and maybe make that as your strength.
Okay, thanks.
Right. So now that you've got a playlist, the often question is asked is, how do I study? Is there a particular standard I need to start studying from, or do I just pick and choose anything? Because most of the students usually come from a structured format. let's say college or CA, and you've given that, this is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and you go sequentially. IFRS is not like that, right? So you can just pick up, except for understanding the basics of what IFRS means and understanding the conceptual framework, pretty much you can pick up any standard from anywhere. So we usually say that if you are working in a company and you're using Ind AS, pick up the Ind AS which you're most familiar with, start with that corresponding IFRS or IAS and start studying. So there is no order which is prescribed, though we just put out a recommended study planner saying that this is what we think you should study, and that's basis the lectures pattern. But you can pick and choose anything, provided you finish the conceptual framework, which is understanding why IFRS is brought in place and what is the pillars of IFRS. Right. So pick up any choice on, either from the book or from a study planner. Read all the resources given on the Google Classroom. Take the book, read a lecture, and then when the live lecture listen to a lecture and live lecture, listen to them. Once you've done the concept, take a quiz, right? So more number of times you take a quiz, your concept's going to get better. Most students who start by taking a quiz, first time usually don't score beyond 50, 60%. But once you start scoring 80s and 90s, it means your concepts are there, right? So you keep taking as many quizzes as possible. It will help you score that 80% or even make you pass the exams to a large extent. Once you've taken the quiz, go back and read the ACCA technical article. This will ensure the first 4 steps will ensure concepts are there. Now it's about working on exam technique. Initial days, in case you have time, solve the the topic wise question paper of the past or from the revision kit and use it on the software. Don't just look at the answer orally and memorize and try to do it, but try and work it on the software, right? But once you get towards the revision stage is when you actually actively work on solving it on the revision, on the the all past question papers you'll actually keep solving. Right. So just to conclude on your presentation, the exams, if there is COVID, the exams can go remote, which means that you can take exams from home. Exam bookings usually start for June exams on Feb of 8th and for December exams on August 8th. Seats are first come, first serve basis. Seats will usually run out in bigger cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, Bangalore by around even a month prior to the last date of booking. So let's say if your exam booking date is October 30 for December exams, by 15th September to 30th September, you won't find seats in the center. If there are no seats at center, it means you'll have to book an exam from a home, which is not the preferred method of writing the exams. Right. So exam dates are December exams is on 8th, June, if you're writing next 24 is around 7th, and exam results are 6 weeks from the date of exam. Right. So that's what I had to cover on the, how do you go about studying for the exams. So before I just go into how to use a Google Classroom, if anyone has any questions at this stage, please do ask.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Say I did not book exam for, like, I have registered right now and I do not appear for December exam. So will my registration be valid for the next exam, like whichever would be in June next year?
Yes. So your registration is valid for 10 years as per current ACCA rules. They can change.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that. The exam fees, if you don't pay, it's your choice. You don't. The only thing which you may miss out is, let's say you've taken our access, Google Classroom access till December, then the
Yeah.
access will expire in December, right?
Okay,
But
and can we extend it with EduYash if you want to?
yes, you can extend. There's a renewal fee of 6,600. We do give out early discounts, maybe in the month of, prior to the exam closure. You can take a call between before your exam booking date. If you want to extend, you can definitely do it. But otherwise 6,600. But just to let you know, but all of you are covered by pass guarantee, which means that if you write the exam in December and don't clear the exam, you anyway get a free extension. So we always encourage you to write the exam. Don't be worried about the results, even if you're not prepared. Go ahead, write. It's just an experience which you'll gain. And obviously, if you not clear and you write it again, your knowledge will be much, much better and sharper.
Okay. Okay, and while registration, actually, I did register through EduYash 1.5 month back, and I haven't received any confirmation from the ACCA yet. So,
ACCA hasn't started its registration at the moment. They are starting from June. They were just waiting for the June exams to start. So next week you should hear from our teams. We will send out registration forms. You will have to upload your documents. Once you give it to us, ACCA will take about 7 to 10 days, and your registration will be complete.
okay, thanks.
Any other question, guys, on exam preparation or how to study for the exams?
I have a question.
Hello.
Yeah, please. Yeah, Piyusha.
Yes, so I want to ask you, do you have any software similar to what ACCA uses to get us used to this type of answering and everything?
Yes, so we have a BPP software. There's a free common login which is there in the Google Classroom. I'll show you where it is when I cover the Google Classroom. But so that's a common login, which means that more than 5 or 6 students concurrently log in. It will log the 6th person out. In case you want to buy your own software and if you want to print out, it's about 500 rupees. So we'll help you get that as well.
Okay, and that is similar to the CV software.
90% similar.
So, okay, all right, yeah, thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Ravi.
On the exam centers, also the computer-based exam is there, no writing.
There's not the written exams are extinct now since 2019. Since
Oh.
2020, so at the center, you write a computer-based exam. So many students think CBE means center-based exam. It is a computer-based exam. You can take the exam either from home or from the center.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Manoj, can we apply for this, the individual CB software right away?
Yeah, you can. I'll share the link on the WhatsApp group. If anyone wants to buy, you can buy it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
Yes.
How much is the fees for EduYash classes for this December exam?
Okay, you're an existing student, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so just DM us. It will be around 6,600.
Okay.
Viola, you were asking something?
Yes, I have a question. So in case if we don't have practical experience in financial reporting, so will that matter? So how the question come? Do we have to have any practical knowledge about it, or it is only basically the concept and how we interpret the concept?
See, most students usually don't have working knowledge of across IFRS. So if there are 25 IFRS, most students will not, even if who are actively working except for Big Four, won't have more than 30% anyway, right? So most of you don't use all standards on day-to-day basis. Very few students use even 70%. So don't worry too much about whether you have practical experience. It's all about how you interpret and present the concept in the exam. So one critical key is obviously understanding the concepts, but equally critical is presentation. That will come with a lot of practice. The more past question papers you solve, the more you solve, the language and terminology. And if you use the past cards, you'll get better and better at it. So it's all about practice. So don't worry whether you have practical application. So just focus on one quizzes. I forgot to mention that. The more quizzes you take, it's going to get you much closer to the real life scenario. 2, practice as many past question papers as you can. And 3, use the past cards. They will really help.
All right. Thank you so much.